Central to my study is the impact of external socio-political forces on Black as well as Dalit women, particularly how systematic oppression pushes individuals towards extreme outcomes that result in imposed disability. Additionally, I also analyze the ways in which society imposes both physical and mental disabilities upon these communities, not only through direct violence and marginalization, but also through structural and epistemic forms of oppression. By engaging within these narratives, my research aims to illuminate the lived realities of these women while contributing to the broader discourses on intersectionality, social disability, resistance, and trauma. My research also aims to challenge the prevailing paradigms in disability studies by addressing a critical gap: the lack of focus on the application, imposition, and implication of disability on marginalized communities such as Black women and Dalit women. Through a comparative sociogenic post-colonial study of Black womanist literature and Dalit feminist literature, I introduce a societal perspective to the field, highlighting how disability is not merely an inherent condition, but can also be imposed by oppressive superstructures like caste hierarchy, racism, colonialism, and patriarchy, of course. I believe that to truly have a society that fosters accommodation for everyone, it is highly important to also address the evils of the society that hinder people from showing up in their best and healthiest forms and functioning as social beings. Now, why this topic? What is the contribution that's going to go to the scholarship? So, my research proposal actually addresses a significant conceptual as well as a methodological gap that I found in disability studies scholarship. While currently critical disability studies explore disability in relation to race, caste, and gender, they primarily treat these as intersecting experiences rather than a fully integrated intersectional framework. Similarly, Black disability studies focus on the lived experiences of disabled individuals and their social marginalization, emphasizing how disability is socially constructed and the consequences of that construction. But my work intervenes in the gaps by introducing a sociogenic model of disability, which examines how individuals are subjected to enduring disabilities, whether temporary, permanent, physical, or mental, due to their marginalized social positions caused by the society. Sociogeny is a model that was introduced to us by Franz Fanon in their book, The Wretched of the Earth, as well as Black Skin, White Masks. My model challenges the notion that disability is socially an inherent condition. Instead, it highlights how disabling circumstances emerge from systematic oppression, systematic as well as systemic. Rather than framing disability as a personal tragedy or biological abnormality, sociogenic disability studies investigate how these conditions are socially produced, imposed, and sustained within specific communities. A key contribution of my research is expanding the definition of disability by literally dissecting the dis and the ability part that encompasses the destabilization of the psyche and the body, disempowering social conditions, and structural violence that results in bodily and mental impairments. Furthermore, I also want to analyze how these disabling forces distort reality and produce a profound sense of dislocation among affected individuals and communities. By foregrounding these dimensions, my research advances a more nuanced understanding of disability as both a lived experience and also a socially imposed condition. With this research, I also aim to contribute to the growing field of Black and Dalit studies, which has gained significant momentum over the past few decades. By engaging with these intersecting scholarships, I seek to deepen the understanding of oppression, particularly through the shared characteristics of colonial domination and historical solidarity. And by building on the intellectual legacies of Franz Fanon, Sylvia Wynter, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, whose works together laid a foundation for comparative racial and critical caste analysis, my research, along with literary authors, concurrently engage with theory scholars such as Sami Shah, Jennifer Barclay, and Gina B. Kim, expanding the discourse on disability Black studies. And in doing so, I also seek to lay the groundwork for a critical sociogenic disability studies framework, particularly in the Dalit studies, addressing the structural forces that still continue to dictate lived experiences of these people. So I do have a little bit of methodology or a theoretical framework here. So, from the pre existing scholarship on the topic, my research will extensively take help of feminist disability studies by Rosemary Garland Thompson to strengthen the argument on how women and queer bodies are subjected towards discrimination on the pretext of disability by intersectional analysis and critique of power structures explained in the theoretical framework. The research also emphasizes the importance of reimagining disability as a social construct rather than a medical or individual deficit, which will be beneficial for me in creating my argument around understanding the implications of imposed disability on the characters of some selected texts that I have. Some of the major works that I'll be looking at is Riddles in Hinduism by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, Dalit, the Black Untouchables of India by V.T. Rajshekhar Shetty, and Caste, of course, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. They're going to be instrumental in understanding the societal construction of disparities converting into disabilities and its application to marginalized societies and identities. And to delve deeper into the experiences of characters deemed deviant from societal norms, Elizabeth J. Donaldson's Literature of Madness does offer a truly valuable lens to me. By analyzing madness in literature, my research will illuminate the ways in which mental health is shaped by societal expectations and control mechanisms. This allows for a more nuanced understanding of how imposed disability manifests as mental illness or neurodivergence in a lot of characters that we find in the texts present in Black studies or Dalit studies, and actually both of them together. While my research draws on the established scholarship of feminist disability studies and caste hierarchical structures, my primary focus is not just to merely reiterate existing arguments, but to actually expand and develop a field where unique cases of people of color can be studied. My project aims to develop a framework specifically designed to examine, assess, deconstruct, and dismantle the ways in which the imposed disability hinders the nature of growth. By highlighting these issues, my research also contributes to a deeper understanding of complex intersections between disability, gender, societal structures portrayed in the literary works. Thank you all for listening to me so patiently. I would love to have your questions by the end of the session.
Okay, let's do one thing. First of all, thank you so much, Priyanshi, for sharing your research and concepts. First, let's go with all the presentation, and then we'll discuss as a bigger group. So I would now invite the second participant, Suma.
Hello. Hi. I would like to keep my video off as I present because of some power issues. I will now present. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, this is fine. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. I'm Suma. I'm pursuing my first year of PhD in social work from Jamia Millia Islamia, and just a second. So the research topic that I am working on is to understand how social work students perceive the system of caste and how they engage with Dalit clients during their field practice. So caste, as we all know and experience, is one of the most rampant forms of exclusion, and over time, it is not. It is moved on from just being a visible, tangible form of exclusion, like in the forms of untouchability or unequal access to resources to becoming a more normalized form of our everyday life in terms of what we eat, what we consume, what we wear, how we talk, etc. So at this point of time, it's gone to such an extent that the lines between what is casteist and what is not is blurring. So, to address an inequality of such nature requires some kind of systematic interventions. So, here's where professional social work comes into the picture. So, professional social work, by definition, commits to the ideals of social justice, human rights, and empowerment of the marginalized. And the National Association of Professional Social Works in India explicitly mentions that it focuses on creating culturally responsive interventions through participatory processes for people in need, which means that social work is designed in such a way that the marginalized get to decide what is just for them and what is not. So, social work uniquely positions itself to be a profession that
Hello, there is some issue with the audio, Suma.
uh, hello.
Yeah, go ahead now. We can hear you.
Yes, I'm so sorry for that.
No, it's
Just give
okay.
me a
It's
second.
fine. It happens. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I get this on. So social work profession uniquely positions itself in a place where it is not only a tool to address caste-based marginalization or exclusion, but also to actively challenge caste as a system. So this prompted me to understand uh, how social work education or how social work educational institutions deal with the question of caste. And that's when we see that it is a very much debated and contested area. So we see that traditional social work schools continue to exclude Dalit and tribal realities from the mainstream curriculum. And one of the major criticisms of social work in India is that it fails to address the complex social realities of the Indian context and caste, especially, and also sometimes tends help its clients adjust to the existing status quo and not challenge them. These issues in the social work system is also combined with a larger problem of underrepresentation of Dalit faculty in social sciences, as you can see in the graph. So considering this context, this reflects what Professor Murli Desai calls elitism in the discipline, quoting the discipline in itself is elite based on as we can see in who joins to become social work professionals, who trains them, at what levels they are trained, and who funds their practice. So this makes me come to the important question. So where do I position my proposed risk? So the existing contribution in this particular research area recognizes that caste has not been adequately dealt within the social work classrooms. And there's been a large chunk of literature on this area which calls for some kind of educational reforms in social work, the changes, need for a curriculum reform, change in the way social work is taught within classrooms, etc. However, there is one major question that comes up over here, which is if caste is not dealt adequately within social work classrooms at this moment, then what information do students hold when they engage with caste or when they think about caste? And these students are um, social work professionals in making. So uh, I would say I would like to position my research at this juncture where I ask this question of how do social work students perceive the caste system and engage with Dalit clients during their field practice. So I plan on to study this. I plan on conducting a qualitative case study research where I would be identifying 4 social work institutions that provide masters in social work uh, across 2 states in India, which is Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. And I would identify one student from each of these institutions who are doing their final year MSW. And these students will be identified based on their engagement with a client who identifies themselves to be a Dalit person. And um, the students, the sample that I said um, will also be selected in such a way that they reflect gender and caste diversity. And in terms of collecting data, I would look at it in 2 phases. The first phase would be in the initial engagement with my participants, where I would try and get an in-depth interview with them to understand their own understandings of the caste system and how they navigate uh, caste both professionally and personally. And the second phase would involve me accompanying my student participants to their field when they go to meet their Dalit clients and observing their um, interactions and interventions with the Dalit clients over a period of multiple visits. And this data would be thematically analyzed to understand uh, how caste is, how caste is translated in social work practice ground up. Um, Finally, what is the significance of this research and why am I trying to do what I'm trying to do? Is at a macro level, I believe doing this research would help me map the extent to which there is caste awareness within social work training spaces. And at a personal and micro level, I hope my engagement with these participant social work institutions during that, I hope my research turns out to be a reflective discourse for the participants that I've um, done this research with, and it kind of sparks some kind of student-led conversations around caste consciousness and reflective practice inside their classrooms. And at a larger level, I wish this research to be some kind of small contribution towards the larger disciplinary debates, such as those raised by scholars like Gopal Guru and Professor Vivek Kumar, who talk about um, how egalitarian the social sciences are, and Vivek Kumar, how egalitarian Indian sociology is. So this is about it. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Suma, for your presentation. Now I would request our last, let me see. Okay, Mitesh. Yeah. So, Mitesh, go ahead. You have 5 to 10 minutes to present, and then we'll open the session for comments and discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much for handing over the floor to me and having me here. Um, I'll share my screen. Okay, so is my screen visible? Okay, yeah, thank you so much. So, uh, the topic of my the broad topic of my research is mapping everyday resilience in the age of Anthropocene perspectives from the SMEs in India's global city. And what I'm trying to do here is I'm looking at how small and medium enterprises navigate the impacts of climate change, such as flooding and heat waves, in context of India, and what are the everyday strategies that they use to navigate this and sustain their businesses. But my current stage of what I am exploring is I'm looking at the social angle of how businesses interact with each other, and I'm looking at how different stakeholders they look at the how different stakeholders they navigate these type of crisis in context of the existing social inequalities in India. So let's directly uh, start start by situating the debate, and how I arrived to this question is also like very interesting. There are two very important stories which I want to share with you. So one, in 2023, I received a phone call from one of my colleagues, and the phone call was about talking about one of the event uh, of Ambedkar Jayanti. And in that event, one particular speaker was called who was a successful business owner. And when one of the audience member questioned the speaker about the success of his business, he attributed his success to saying that he has a business partner who is a Savarna individual. And that is the reason why his business is sustaining and thriving in current times. Uh, m- that reminded me of one another conversation which I had when I went to my native place a few years back, when I was having a conversation with one of my uncles, and similarly, he also attributed the success of his business to having a Patel partner, which is a Savarna caste in Gujarat. So the question arises that how did a question which was not remotely, which was remotely not associated with caste, got into conversation with the how that entire conversation got converted into the conversation of caste. So looking at this, I also looked up I tried to look up some of the evidences whether or not this has been happening. And I found out one particular incident where caste identity was a focal point for the entrepreneurial journey of different individuals. And one striking story I came across was of Dr. Ambedkar. And it is so very little is known about Dr. Ambedkar's entrepreneurial journey. And when he came back to India, he started a stockbroking and financial advice startup on the streets of Bombay. And that business, because of his academic excellence, was thriving. But as soon as like the Savarna stakeholders or the Savarna competitors came to know about the caste of Dr. Ambedkar, the news about his caste identity spread like wildfire. And then eventually he lost a lot of clients, and eventually he had to shut down his business and move on to something else. And looking at the current context, and comparing the same entrepreneurial journey of Dalit individuals, there is a stark contradiction happening. So, Dr. Ambedkar's caste was responsible for shutting down his business. But if we look in the contemporary times, this is the picture of global pop star Rihanna sitting on a chair which was exhibited in one of the cities in New York, and this chair was made by Chamar Studios, which is based in Dharavi in Bombay. And this particular startup, it uses the caste identity to sell the products to the masses. And not only this, but it deals with a very premium segment of leather products. So how previously even the disassociation of caste, which was happening to thrive the businesses, that has completely transformed into associating caste to a businesses to make it a success point. So I wanted to explore more on this type of contradiction, and going further, I tried to look for the literature regarding this, and one very striking literature I found out was of Judith Nakta, and her literature challenges the primordialist notions of ethnicity by demonstrating how Malay community uses their Malay identity in Malaysia, and that identity is fluid, it is context dependent, and it is strategically mobilized in response to socio-political and economic conditions. She also illustrates how individuals and groups selectively emphasize or downplay their malayness across different situations. So this somewhat explains the fluidity of the identity which Dalit businesses currently are doing. So using the caste identity to get the benefits of affirmative action schemes, and then collaborating with the Savarna stakeholders to get hold of their social capital to strive and sustain their businesses. So this is how, like, currently the caste identity is strategically visibilized or invisibilized and used for economic gain. But looking at the other scholarship also, like, we have to move beyond the frame of untouchability and explore caste as a fluid identity in the current neoliberal context. So setting the conceptual framework for this entire conversation, I wanted to inquire what exactly happens when Dalits enter the spaces which were previously closed to them. So, one of the studies which revolves around the education system, because the education sector was also previously closed to the Dalits, and Ajanta Subramaniam has worked extensively on how caste works in higher education institutes, and she mentions how caste as an identity is invisibilized by the upper caste to conceal their privileges. So the factor, Ajanta Subramaniam doesn't explicitly mentions about concealing of the caste identity, but reading her work, we can get to know how the upper caste are conveniently concealing their caste identity to appear more modern and gain access to the higher education institutes. Similarly, there is a study by Satish Deshpande, and he has coined the term castelessness, and he's using similar framework to portray that how upper caste individuals, they invisibilize their privileges by uh, denouncing their caste identity. So, this is how conveniently the upper castes are denouncing or invisibilizing their caste identity in order to gain, in order to hide their privilege and also to maintain the social networks and the social capital which they have. But on the other side, we are witnessing there is hyper visibility of Dalit individuals, and which is used to show assertion, and also to gain socio-economic mobility, as we saw in the case of Chamar Studio. But then there is a gap in this kind of conceptual framework, so which only focuses on the invisibilization of the privileges and the hyper visibility of caste of the Dalits. So when it comes to the examining caste in current neoliberal framework, we don't have enough literature to look at how the fluid caste identities operate in context of in the business realm, so that uh, which attributes towards the success of or the sustenance of the current businesses. Yeah. So coming back to Dickey. So Dickey is Dalit Indian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So it claims that the markets are the new mantra for economic mobility of Dalits in context of waning jobs in the public sector. And this has particularly caused the Dalits youth to find ways to create their own opportunities for self-employment through small enterprises. So now, previously Dalits were absent from the markets, and they were only entering into the markets as consumers. But as we are witnessing in the neoliberal era, due to privatization, there is reduction of government jobs, which was previously a way to gain socioeconomic mobility for Dalits. So now they are forced to step like forced to create their own opportunities, and they are moving towards self-employment through establishing small enterprises. So becoming a stakeholders in like uh, from the consumers of the market to becoming the stakeholders of the market. So when Dalits usually enter into the spaces which were previously closed to them, we witness that they are met with both systemic and overt forms of discrimination and violence, and there are like plenty of studies on this. And when the aspiration of Dalits it moves towards socioeconomic mobility, there is active or increase in the violence against them. So now when Dalits are entering into the markets, the neoliberalism concept it promises liberation to the Dalits via the free or the market economy. But at the same time, we are witnessing that it reinforces the caste inequalities through the market itself. And we are also witnessing how caste operates both as a barrier and also it is used as a strategic tool in businesses. So to look into this, the methodology which I will be using is through my personal experience. This is one of the things that happened with me. File a civil suit in Bombay High Court, and this helped me understand that what are the problems of the entrepreneurs who are entering markets as a newcomers. So I was able to do that via my own reflection, and that is why as a method I tend to incline towards ethnography, because that will help me uncover the hidden transcripts in the daily business interactions between the different stakeholders and also market participants. And because I will be engaging with my own Dalit positionality, I will try to contribute towards decolonizing the knowledge production as well. So these are the broad aims and objectives of my project. First is to critically examine the intersection of caste and business in South Asia and explore how caste identity shapes Dalit entrepreneurship, market access, economic mobility in contemporary context. I will also try to contribute to policy and scholarship and create a safe and inclusive space for Dalit voices who are now the newcomers in the market economy, and also to advance methodological approaches by deeply engaging with my Dalit positionality. Some of the research questions that I tried to frame was beyond the frame of untouchability, how does caste manifest in complex forms of entanglement with people's social lives and India's political economy? What are the structural hurdles like exclusion and discrimination which Dalits face when they participate in the market economy? How does caste identity of business owner influence customer perceptions and market success? And apart from this, to contribute to a larger literature of business anthropology, I also want to frame a question that how do low and SMEs perceive and respond to climate induced challenges, for example, flooding and heat waves, and what are the everyday strategies of low end SME traders that they employ to adopt environmental uncertainties while maintaining and sustaining their business? Yeah, thank you so much for providing me the space to present my work. I'll stop here.
Thank you again, Mitesh. So now we will open up this session for initial comment, and then let's see how it goes. And then I have some ideas, but I don't want to um, stop discussion or giving direction in a particular way. So this is now the session is open for any initial comment or any initial thought anyone has. Please raise your hand, or you can print your comment or question in the chat box, whatever works. Yes, Priyanshi, go ahead.
So I actually have a question for Mitesh. Firstly, amazing work. It's such an important work that you're doing. My question to you is that the businesses that you're targeting, especially the Dalit businesses that you're targeting, is there some sort of economic strata that you're looking for? As in, are you going for businesses that are well established, or are you also looking for the lower tier or the middle tiered work? Let's say there was an example, not an example, there was an incident I came across a few years back where I got to know that thela wala, you know, there was this tea seller who was selling his tea under the name of Dalit. I don't remember their surname, but they were using their surname, the Dalit surname, and they were selling the tea by that name, and they came across a lot of discrimination because people were outright telling them that we are not going to drink tea from your stall because it's a Dalit tea stall. And I believe it happened in Rajasthan because these are some of the cases that you find majorly happening in North India. But yeah, my question to you is whether you'll also be targeting the middle tiered or the lower tiered businesses, or is it just for the higher tiered businesses like Chamar Studios?
So, I think Chamar Studio is also, you can categorize it in the SME segment. It doesn't have any turnover more than 25 crores, which the government of India has set for the SME segment. And I am interested in looking at how businesses interact with each other, where they are part of the same supply chain. For example, if Chamar Studio is operating in leather industries, there are in that particular leather cluster, there are other leather industries owned by the Savarna individuals. So how does Chamar Studio navigate that particular space to make their own name in the market and sell their own product and profit and sustain the same? So that is like I want to so basically main question to explore is the question of caste, but then how the caste identity is traditionally how it is perceived as a very static thing, how now in the neoliberal setup it has become so fluid that it changes its form, shape, size, and tries to enter in the realms which were previously closed to the caste as an institution. So to inquire that, I want to record the intercaste dynamics between different businesses, and that is how I can inquire that question.
Okay, awesome. What year are you in again?
So this is my first year. I just submitted my first report.
Amazing.
Okay, there is Saista. Saista, please.
Thank you, Bharat. I just want to say congratulations to all of these three amazing young scholars who are doing such important work. Please keep your work protected. Sometimes it's necessary to protect it even from your supervisors. Please publish, keep things protected, because I mean, there's a long history of Savarna stealing from, Dalits and particular kinds of Muslims. But congratulations. My question in particular is for Priyanshi. Priyanshi, this is such a brilliant project. I mean, all three are. But I was just wondering, as somebody who back, in her own youth wanted to pursue this project, except that, I mean, I identify as a Dalit too, despite my last name, but the disability studies scholar in my institution was really, really racist. So I had to change my path. But two questions, and you can choose to respond to either of them. How do you understand the relationship between disability studies and math studies? I think that's an important question that I have for you. And secondly, like you mentioned, riddles in Hinduism for thinking about the question of disability in Dalit studies. I was wondering if there are any autobiographies, especially from Dalit women, that can also become part of your archive. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for your question. Could you repeat your first question again? You said Dalit studies and what studies again?
Dalit studies and math studies, because I think you mentioned both. And sorry, I was making breakfast for my family at that time, so I'm sorry if I missed it.
Okay, so madness is one of the segments that I'll be choosing to work on, but okay, so here is how I explain what exactly am I doing. So my focus actually lies not just on the disability as to what it looks like, but the whole process of it, like how it happens. So if in case I have to give you an example, I straight up take the example of Indra Meghwal's case that happened in 2019, Pali, Rajasthan. And if we look at it from a model, from a medical model, we realize that it does not really contribute to the disability studies. But when we come to the psychological implications of it, the psychological and sociological implications of it, we realize, or at least I have realized, that disability is not just physical. It does not have to look in a way that you have lost an arm or you have lost a leg and it was inherent, as in this is how you were born. My model comes into the being where I explain how the whole society is disabled, as in disabled, like I said, the two words dissected. So if I have to again give you the example of Indra Megwal, the guy was straight up killed for keeping a mustache in literally 20th century. And that did not just disable him physically, as in they murdered him, and that perceived that whole perception of it by the whole society was taken as something so brutal and so traumatizing that even the youngsters after that, they started to scare to even have mustache. So now we were not really dealing with a disability that was visible to us, but a sociological model that was literally thrown away in our society, that this is what happens once you cross your line. And that is exactly what I'm contesting about. That there are so many factors that are lying in the society that disables us, and not just in a physical form, but in a mental form. So the whole process of how it is done, why it is done, what happens, and how the disability is imposed, how is it implied in the society? That is what my question is. Can you repeat your second question? I'm sorry, I forgot to note it.
No, it's okay. That was really important. Thank you so much. And not to give unsolicited advice, but because I'm an auntie, I do that all the time now. There's a book by Sarah Ahmed, Queer Phenomenology, and I think that would be, I don't know if you want to engage with it, but it would be a really amazing one in terms of thinking about orientation and disability that is not situated in the body. The question I had asked was if you're looking at any Dalit women's autobiographies for thinking about the question of disability.
Right. So I am I do have a few texts. Of course, I have Bama's text in it. I'm also looking at Meena Kandasami's The Orders Were to Rape Us. I'm looking at Uma Chaturvedi, and I'm forgetting the other person's name, but we also wrote history, which was the collective history of Dalit women and how they helped in the emancipation and during the anti-colonialist movement that was going on alongside Baba Sahib. And there are also, so I'm also working on field about a lot of things, and how the whole model actually gets permeated into the society. So it's a bit of field work, as well as it's also some of the cases will also be taken from this very recent book that came out, the Atrocities Act by Dr. Sandhya Fuchs. And there were a few more books that I cannot remember on top of my head, but yeah. So it's going to be more of an autoethnographic as well as a theoretical research.
Thank you so much, and good luck in your research journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions.
I'm waiting for people's question or raising hand, so that's why I'm not doing anything.
Hi, Bharat. Can I ask a
Oh,
question?
please, I'm
Yeah.
waiting. Go ahead, my friend.
Uh, Thank you, everyone, for this amazing presentations. I have a question for Mitesh. So, Mitesh, you talked about how Dalit businesses are using caste or not using, choose to use caste or not choose to use caste, right? Especially with Chamar Studio, I think there is this very specific fetishization of caste that is happening, like how they are using caste or how the Savarnas are consuming caste in a certain way, right? It's not about just Dalits using caste, but also Savarnas consuming caste in a certain way. So those bags become like a status symbol of like, oh, we support a certain Dalit businesses, right? Versus like what Priyanshka was talking about, a tea seller where they are refusing to drink tea because there's a certain class element also attached to it, right? So I was wondering, are you going to be looking at uh, different sectors within businesses? So like selling food versus like a fetishization business like a Chamar Studio. I'm not critiquing Chamar Studio, by the way. I'm just saying that there is this element also to it. So yeah.
I haven't thought about exploring different. So, like my perception of doing a fieldwork was either I will be engaged in a single industry, and I was supposed to do it in either the leather cluster or the textile cluster in Mumbai. But it would be interesting to draw comparisons, but I don't really know like if I would be able to do that within the limits that I have in my PhD. Uh, but yeah, I would surely look into it. Of course, there is like the thing that you said about the fetishization of caste. That is definitely there, and that is why how I'm exploring the fluidity of the identity of the caste, when it becomes important, when it becomes unimportant, how who has the power to make it important or unimportant, and how does it operate in a particular cluster, like a particular industry. So it will definitely answer that, but I don't know about the comparison with the different sectors. I hope I answered. Like, I don't really know.
I I mean, there's no need to necessary like you have to answer all the question. If you define the question or if you identify the problem, that itself is a contribution in research. Not necessarily you need to find all the answers. Feel free, other participants, please feel free. Yeah, Linu, go ahead.
Hi. Thank you everyone for those amazing presentations, and I learned a lot from all your work and keep doing amazing work. My question is to Priyanshi, and it's a very basic question. I know you're still sort of developing your research and everything. So the basic question is in terms of how race figures in your work and Black feminism, and how you are sort of connecting it with caste. Is it a comparative analysis or something beyond that? Yeah, just a basic question. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your question, Lino. So, yes, it is a comparative approach, and the comparison is actually based or rooted out of the shared solidarity and shared ancestry that we share with our Black cousins. So, it is actually that I'm still, in a way, contesting the idea of how to exactly go about it, because the shared solidarity also has its own limitations as to how geographically we can actually put both of the segments together or both of the geographies together. But as of now, it is the shared struggles that we have and the compared or as in the comparative the repetitive pattern that we see among both the classes that I'm contesting about, because once it comes to race and when it comes to caste, when we actually go deeper into the models of racism and caste discrimination, the evident patterns of discriminations are actually very much similar to each other. So there are many of the sociological as well as psychological studies that have happened where we have seen theorists actually talking about both of these together. And then there are also some theorists whose theories apply to both the sections, as in, let's take an example of Sylvia Winter. She has done amazing job, and I don't think there is any stones unturned by her where she has not spoken about how discrimination, whether it is about race, it is about caste. She doesn't go about caste discrimination, but her theories can be applied straight up to caste discrimination. And the similar thing goes for Frantz Fanon as well. And I know that the idea of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar has not been that much explored when it comes to Black studies, but there are so many of his works that can be straight up applied to the race studies as well, or the critical race studies that we do. So, yeah, it's shared solidarity, ancestral, and history that we have, and also the theories in the way they apply to both the geographies and communities.
Hello,
Please go ahead, Deepak.
hello everyone. My question is to Priyanshi ma'am. Ma'am, you have mentioned trauma thing. Like I just gave my last semester exam, Department of English, Delhi University. So I'm just looking to pursue my PhD elsewhere. So my question is that you have mentioned trauma. So how we can theorize trauma, and is there any book that give us a broad uh, description about trauma, so that we can get a basic understanding, like social trauma and psychological trauma sort of thing, and how it help in Dalit's life to make a to make identity some sort of thing. Can you just tell us about it?
Thank you so much for your question, Deepak. So we do have a lot of books, and what my personal suggestion to you would be to theorize trauma in your own way, because that's an approach that I took for myself. But if you ask me that there are books that straight up talk about the trauma, then there actually is a book called The Trauma of Caste by Tanimurzi Sundarajan, and there are so many works of Baba Saheb. His volumes, they talk about trauma in literally so many layers. If you look at, let's just even begin with the annihilation of caste, the most basic um, work that you can find of Dr. Ambedkar. It talks about trauma significantly. Then we also have contemporary authors like Dr. Suraj Yengde, who talks about trauma of caste in his book Caste Matters. A new book has come out. It has just recently come out. It's called Caste, the Global Story. Then there is also this book called Caste by Dr. Isabel Wilkerson that talks about the discontent of our origins. Like, truly, it talks about the discontents that we have. It talks about the trauma that we have endured and the way we are still experiencing it. And my personal approach to studying trauma actually goes a little intersectional, where I talk a little about the psychology of trauma and then the sociology of it. So I would suggest looking into scholarly researches and more of the sociological works that we have present. I can send you over a list. You can connect with me later on.
Okay, I have go ahead. You want to say something, please?
No, I hope that clears out something.
Okay, I have a small announcement. I posted a feedback form link in the chat box. Please give your feedback for our future events. And now we are moving to the last section of our this discussion. So I don't think there is any question or any. Let me check. Yeah, nothing. Yeah. So now each participants will get chance to ask one question. So people can jump in, they can give their suggestion, or if they have answer, they can certainly answer that question. So each one, you have a opportunity to ask a question to the group. So whoever wants to go first? Any particular question that you are thinking about, or you would like to get suggestions or feedback from the group? Yeah. I would say, go ahead, Suma. Go ahead, you go first.
All right. So off the top of my mind, I learn a lot of things, and I also realized that I came in with a sense of, the entrance to PhD kind of a vibe when I came in with my research topic. So one question, if I had to ask, would be like, how do you build your theoretical base for the research? Like, how do you place yourself in a larger context? Like, when I think about myself, I occupy a very minimal space within the academic environment. So how exactly do you place yourself, position yourself? And I'm asking this as someone who's hardly had like a couple of months into PhD. So where do you start?
I can answer the question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I hope I'm getting your question straight. You're talking about the journey of PhD, right? How do we start and as in begin with it? Is that so?
Yeah.
Okay. So theoretically, I would recommend you to look into the fact, firstly, the first and foremost part as to where exactly do you want to pursue your PhD from? Because in my experience, I found out that all the countries have their own different sorts of things going on when it comes to PhD. Like when I came to US, it was more of a coursework plus dissertation. But back in India, what I had heard and what my friends are doing is that they had to give in their prospectus from the get-go, and there was a little room, a wiggle room, I would say, but some of them are still struggling with their advisors, while some are more flexible. So choose your geography first as to where do you want to pursue it from. Then, if in case, let's say you come to US, you do have a lot of wiggle room here to explore the idea in a very, very expanded manner, as in you have a 2.5 to 3 years 3 years coursework. So there are times when your primary question, let's say if you have just one single question as your PhD topic. There is more room here that it can be expanded or can be absolutely changed into something else. But I would say start with a primary question first and see how much work has been done on it and what is your exact, not exact, but what all can you contribute to the whole scholarship of it? And why does it matter? Because I personally feel that it is one of the most important questions that we need to ask from our works whenever we do it. That why? If somebody has to read my book, why would they spend time on reading my book? Or why would they spend time on reading my article? Am I actually giving them the information within 10 minutes that they need to have, or am I just bluffing my way around it? So make your question as detailed as you can. Look for all the complexities that you can. And also, I won't say that run behind the idea of always bringing something very new into the field. Look for the methodological and the conceptual gaps that we still have in the scholarships present, because there are so many times when it comes to studies especially, we have so many conceptual gaps that are left just unanswered by anybody. As in, they can take you from point A to C, but they're never going to tell you how we even have point B to begin with. How did we reach from point A to point C? And what happened to the whole process of getting to point B? So try to find what sort of question you're answering to, whether it is methodological, it is conceptual, it is theoretical, it is epistemological. And I think these are the questions that are going to help you and expanding on your primary question. And then once you start reading about them, once you start seeing how people are talking about it, you automatically tend to also fall into the idea of, okay, this is how it's being talked about, but I think about this in this particular manner. So firstly, is this even valid? Am I talking sense? And if I'm talking sense, then if I'm not talking sense, then how do I make it make sense? That would be my advice.
Saisa, go ahead.
Thank you, Bharat. I just want to add to that. Thank you so much, Priyanshi, for that. I just want to add to that maybe, and I don't know if it's fair to call on Shikha to contribute what she's been saying about citation politics, because I think that's really important in terms of building a theoretical framework where you are convinced that the people you are citing are very ethical. So, for example, I identify as both Dalit and Muslim. And for me, citing somebody like Suraj Yengre is really troubling because of his extreme Islamophobia and other things behind the scenes. But at least in published work, his work is extremely Islamophobic. For me, citing Kancha Ilaya has been for the longest time, I'm troubled because of his Islamophobia, but also his extreme Zionism now, right? So who are you citing? To put it coarsely, who are you in bed with? And these are the people you will attract based on your citation politics. I would also say attend conferences, which is a privilege. So, whatever local conferences are happening, if you want to begin with that really is one of the best ways. Listen to people, read other people's work, step outside your comfort zone. I think those are really important. I don't know, Shikha, if you want to say something about citation politics.
Thank you, Shaista, for sharing that. I don't know if I'm audible because I'm using a different headphones. Am I audible?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, okay. So yeah, this is one of my journey into my own PhD. I recently finished my PhD. And when I was doing my literature review, I was very unsettled when I was reading the work of Upper Caste on caste and gender theoretical books, which was very dehumanizing and from a very deficit lens. And that was further my lived experience when I was reading the literature. It was further marginalizing me. So I figured out the way, like centering as a Dalit woman myself, when I'm writing about Dalit women, I centered writing of Dalit women. And my whole now moving towards the journal articles that I'm currently writing, I'm centering more on the anti-caste lens Dalit feminist framework and also drawing from indigenous feminist ethics framework because that resonates with my ethics more than other feminist thoughts. So it's a journey. It's a journey in itself for me to know who I'm citing, not just putting their name, just for the sake of finding a citation, but rather engaging with those citations, engaging with those authors, knowing what their politics is. Recently, I was reviewing one of the paper where they were theorizing on Audre Lorde's, the master tool does not dismantle master's house. And the whole citations that followed were by white scholars, especially white men. So that was very contradictory. Like when you're saying that master tool does not dismantle master's house, and then your citation is all white. So that was contradictory. So understanding the ethics of citational practices and politics behind it is also important while we do this work that surrounds decolonial or de-Brahminization framework. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have two more questions, one from Mitesh, one from Priyansi, because we are running out of time. So, Mitesh, you would like to go?
So one particular thing that I was wondering on, there is a lot of debate on autoethnography if we like whether it shall be used as a method or not, and then how do we then like uh, validate our personal experiences and like because when we are filling out the ethics form, right? So there is like a loads of thing that you need to follow the textbook rules and regulations, but the actually when you go out in the field, there are a few things where you have to maybe cross boundaries or overlap a few things as far as like our personal identity is concerned, like because my interlocutors will be Dalits as well. And how do I then validate my personal experiences or my interaction with them as a Dalit individual myself, um, and make it what they call as academically rigorous or validated uh, work.
Can I respond, Bharat?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, I think autoethnography, like what the sense that I get from what you are trying to do is not necessarily an entirely autoethnography because you are interacting with people around you or you are interacting with different folks, right? So I think you can just talk about your experience while the interaction is happening. So it's not necessarily an autoethnography, but your experience in the field when you are interacting with the people. So that can be documented. And that's with any other ethnography or any interview that you are going to document the reactions, or the kind of things that was said before and after the interview, or what was the things that happened, like where you met and what was the surroundings and everything. So it's true for any method, like whether you're doing ethnography, autoethnography, interviews. So I don't think necessarily that should be a problem for what you're doing.
Can I add something to what Durgesh has said?
Go ahead.
So, speaking from my personal experience, I'm currently writing a chapter that is supposedly an autoethnographic account of Dalit women from Jaipur and Savai Madhopur from Rajasthan. So, something that I was told by my editors was that if you can show the complexities and if you can back up your work with the significant portion of literature that is already present, but also not in a way that, okay, this is what theoretically your literature is saying. but even your experiences are important. They count as something significant towards the literature, towards the scholarship, because you yourself hold the credibility. You're a scholar, you're a PhD scholar, and people are going to be reading your work after a few years or whenever you get done with it. So hold yourself credible enough to actually quote your experiences as credible sources, or credible sources in a way that these are the experiences that I've had, or these are the interactions that I've had, and then show the complexities as much as you can. Try to do away with the biasness. Sometimes it happens that whenever we are writing from our own experiences, biasness just comes and it's very natural. But show the complexities.
Anyone has any idea, any comment or any suggestion for Mitesh? Sorry, I'm also doing this logistic part, so I'm missing some of the aspect, so I'm not able to contribute. But about the positionality is very important part of your research in terms of the methodology. But depends on how it is connected. Sorry, Mitesh, I don't know the entire question, but I heard whatever I heard in last comment. I can say that how your topic is connected with your personal sort of as a researcher or as a scholar, you can connect with that. So I'm giving my own example about my book, so my book topic, probably you have gone through Mitesh,
Yeah.
right? Or you
Yeah.
know about that. It is about Dalit academic journey. And I am, as a scholar from the same community, I am writing about Dalit academic journey, and I am writing my autoethnography piece as a student going through the Indian higher education system. So the topic and my ethnographic piece is like interconnected. That's how like I added whole one chapter into the book and in my dissertation also. That is like interconnected. So in that way, but certain you can also include in terms of the positionality that makes it very clear and explicit that you have certain kind of experience that is connected with the research topic, right? Right, and certainly the identity piece is central to your research. Okay, okay, now last question opportunity for Priyanshi. Priyanshi, go ahead, because we have to conclude in next 7 to 8 minutes. So go ahead.
I actually don't have a question anymore. I had a
That's
question
great.
Shaista, but she left, so I'm gonna just connect with her later on.
Yeah. I would say one thing actually, because I was just thinking again because I couldn't take much notes about your topics. But regarding the disability in Indian context and US context, so here in US you might have seen probably the literature on DEI and disability, and how that is intersectionality of the not DEI, but the disability, DEI, and the race aspect. So there are a lot of literature because my one friend working in the disability section. So that is also very important in terms of not only the academic and the intellectual aspect, but the actual real world issue, how they interact and deal with those kind of things. So that is my 2 cents from my side.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so I think if you don't have any, still we have a couple of minutes. So if you have any suggestion, comment, feel free. And please give your feedback about the event and your suggestion so we can improve our series and add other topics. Or if you guys, okay, there is no movement or no any comment. So, I mean, if you have all of you three, Mitesh, Priyansi, and Suma, if you have any particular concern or something you would like to share here or connect with any particular person, please, this is the platform. So go ahead. Yeah, it's your platform.
Yeah, I would like to, like, I'm putting out my email in the chat box, and like, if anyone wants to connect with me, that would be something that I would look forward to.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you for.
I'm gonna put in my LinkedIn because that's the best way to connect with me. So I'm gonna put that link just in a second.
Suma, if you don't mind, if you want to put your email ID, you can also put your ID.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so now we are concluding this session. Thank you so much, all of our participants, Priyanshi, Mitesh, and Suma, and all of the participants, those who contributed and comments and listening and so on. So hopefully we will meet again on this kind of any event, and Bahujan Scholar webinar series will continue. We will announce a new series hopefully soon, and we seek your support and encouragement. So please join and participate in this platform, because we want to create a community platform so we can interact, we can develop our research, and certainly supporting each other in different parts of the world. So thank you once again, and bye.
Thank you.